Hello and welcome to Fernbank Science Center's The Sky This Week for November 21st through 27th, 2021. Bright planets in the early evening sky, wintertime constellations becoming visible earlier in the evening, and a couple of constellations that we don't think about very much, some dim ones. Toward the beginning of the week, November 22nd or so, just before 7 o'clock at night, by this time, the sky is dark enough to see some of the planets in the evening sky. They look like really bright stars, and on this image, they're pretty exaggerated on size. Venus and Jupiter will not look like big blobs, and Saturn's nowhere near that big. They're actually going to look like tiny, really bright stars, with Venus as the brightest. In that part of the sky, facing where the sun is going down toward the southwest part of the sky, Venus will be the one brightest and farthest over toward the west. Saturn kind of in between, and Jupiter a little bit higher up and more toward the east. If you look at those through telescopes, they're fun to look at. Currently, for us, Venus is in a crescent phase, not spelled correctly here, but it's in the right spot of the sky. As Venus is moving along its orbit, closer to the sun than Earth is, sometimes we see it as a crescent shape, sometimes a half a shape or a gibbous Venus, and it depends where Venus is along its orbit around the sun. As it gets closer to us, we see more of the crescent size, and the crescent looks pretty big through a telescope. This is a decent sized telescope, so you might need a good one to see Venus this good, but it looks like a crescent moon in the sky if you have really good binoculars or telescope. This is my favorite image of Saturn. It was taken in 2006 by the Cassini spacecraft, and it's actually 165 images that were all taken over a 3-hour period and then computers sandwiched together so that you can see the rings in great detail. And this is taken from behind Saturn. We're looking toward the sun. So Saturn is between us, or the spacecraft rather, and the sun. And the spacecraft is still about 1 million miles away from the planet, and it's taking this image, a bunch of images. So you can see where the rings are lit up, or where the sunlight is coming through the spaces in the rings. Some very thin, tenuous, dusty looking rings. And my favorite part of this whole image is this little blue dot right here. That's Earth. We're looking at our planet from millions and millions of miles out in space. That's where all the good stuff is. In 2019, the Hubble Space Telescope took this image of Jupiter, and it shows the different cloud bands on Jupiter's surface. Well, high atmosphere, actually. That big red spot that everybody likes, the great red spot, has a lot more changing color, and you can notice the cloud bands, the different pressures in the atmosphere, and the ongoing processes in the atmosphere change the colors and the shapes as things are going by. And if you look where the red spot is, it's rotating counterclockwise really fast. And there's a reddish band of clouds off to this side and a whitish band off to this side going in opposite directions. And between them, that spot is turning and spinning and pushing them along. Fun to look at. Toward the middle of the week, by just after 8:15 or so, some of the wintertime stars are becoming visible. They're a little sideways on the sky at this time of night. Give them a couple of hours and they'll be standing straight up. Orion the Hunter, fairly easy to find. Even where I live, where it's really light polluted and there are a lot of trees sticking up, these bright stars are visible. So there are a couple of stars for shoulders, 3 stars in a row for a belt, a couple of stars for knees down here, a clump of new stars forming for the sword. And if you've got good eyes, there's a curve of stars here. It's like a shield in between Orion the Hunter and Taurus the Bull. What would be fun to look for, though, is down here by the feet of the Hunter. There's another constellation, fairly dim. We don't think about it much, but take a look at where it is. If you add in the dots and lines, here's the belt of Orion, bright shoulder, Betelgeuse, bright knee, Rigel, Taurus the bull with his red eye, and Lepus, the hare, is down here. Look at Lepus up close. Here's where he is. A couple of ears. Imagine a rabbit shape here. Big back legs, little front legs, little head, a couple of ears sticking up. Lepus, there he is. Takes some imagination. Actually takes quite a bit of imagination and a really dark sky to see these kind of dim stars that make up Lepus the hare down by the feet of Orion. If it helps, the brightest star we can see from the evening sky anywhere on the Earth at night is the star Sirius, part of the Big Dog, Canis Major. So in between Rigel and Sirius, come over to make a third triangle shape or third triangle line, and Lepus the hare. Up close, or at least expanded in size, maybe it's a little more rabbit shaped, especially the ears and the nose off toward this way. If you like pictures, use your imagination. The rabbit, sometimes a symbol of springtime, is actually up in the wintertime with our hunter Orion. Back at the end of last week, November 19th, there was an almost total lunar eclipse where our full moon passed through the shadow of the Earth. And at the end of this week, we get a last quarter moon. It's on Saturday, November 27th. Technically, the left-hand side of the moon is lit up. If you think about it as where the sun is off toward the left-hand side of this picture, shining on the moon. This is where you can use binoculars and look along the terminator here, the place in between daytime and nighttime on the moon. Look at the craters. There's some nice shadows to look for, nice little range of mountains. Pretty to look at through binoculars. And technically that's at 7:28 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the sun will be up by then. So you'll be able to find that last quarter moon in the daytime sky ahead of where the sun is. And as always, thanks very much for listening. We do appreciate your paying attention on Fernbank's website, www.fernbank.edu, following along with the planetarium programs, the virtual ones, on our Facebook page, and wishing everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and happy holiday season, whatever you celebrate. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.